made the stupid mistake of making a Twitter post where I mocked my husband. The post blew up, and I have always heard that leaving the wrong digital footprint can ruin your life, but I never took that statement seriously, and now my marriage crashed all because of it. My name is Courtney, and I am literally a social media addict. Well, if you think that is an exaggeration, what other explanation would you have for me as a 29 years old woman sharing how social media ruined her marriage on social media barely 2 weeks after all hell broke loose with her husband? Well, you can get what I mean now, right? I'm a graphic designer. Well, that's just me sugarcoating what I do. I am a graphic designer, but I am not a practicing graphic designer. I do not make a lot of money from it because I only know the basics and can just design birthday cards and mini things. Or rather, you can just call me lazy because that's the best explanation for my lack of income. I've been a married woman for 5 years now, but my stupid and recent immature actions would make you wonder if I had just gotten married. The name of my husband, or rather ex-husband to be his Jonathan. Jonathan is a financial advisor at a company that I am not permitted to mention. I would like to keep the personal things as personal as I can, because the last thing I want to do is ridicule myself on social media once again. My life is a mess right now, but I can assure you that it was not always like this. I didn't always come online to make a mess of my marriage. The truth is that I have always loved social media. I have always had social media accounts where I tweeted once in a while and was current with everything going on around me. It was never a problem, and I never did things that had such grave consequences. So, like I said, I have been married for a total of 5 years. I actually met my husband 6 years ago, and we got married 1 year later. Some people might find that really fast, but for me it's not that fast. I have met people that acted so surprised when they discovered we didn't have any background story like most couples. We didn't know each other in college or high school, and we weren't colleagues at work. We just met randomly, exchanged numbers, started talking, then flirting, and then boom, we were dating. After 9 months, he proposed, and then we started planning our wedding. Most people tell us that we moved quite fast, but I have met people that got married earlier than that. I don't think it's compulsory to marry your childhood friend or college mate. Most of the people from my childhood are people I never want to meet anyway, but that's just besides the fact. So Jonathan and I started off really quick, and our marriage was like every normal one. I am not a gold digger, and I never married Jonathan for money. Right now and presently in our lives, Jonathan has made a good name for himself, and he earns a commendable sum every month. As a result of this, many people who meet us now always feel like I only got with Jonathan for his money. Statements like that always get on my nerves because I find it very biased and laughable. I agree that I basically earn peanuts compared to what Jonathan earns, but that doesn't mean I married him for money. At the time we got married, Jonathan was basically a struggling guy with a promising future. Many women would have left or found a richer man, but I married him because I saw potential and because I liked his personality, and it seemed like my relationship with him was the easiest one I'd ever been in. It wasn't a financial transaction for me because I wouldn't have known that he would get rich in the future. But now everyone seems to think that I hit the jackpot and had planned everything from the onset. It really gets on my nerves, and I think what even vexes me the most is the fact that Jonathan has never made a move to defend any of these accusations. I'm not trying to say he agrees with their claims of me being a gold digger. I just have a problem with the fact that he never gives me any credit. I expected him to tell people that I played a role in his success today, and I also expected him to make his number one priority and think of a future with me as his first thought. But all of these things I've been hoping for seem to be a delusional wish of mine. I know you all must be confused at this point, and you are probably wondering where I'm going with this. So let me just break it down as fast and as precise as I possibly can. From the first year of marriage till now, we still do not have any children. No, it is not family planning. The reason we currently do not have children is because of me. It is not because we have refused to have children, but because I have refused to have children. So the thing is, before we got married, I had always been on birth control. To be honest, I have been on birth control since I was basically 19 years old. Yes, it has been that long. Jonathan was aware of this before we got married, and then 1 year after our marriage, he asked me to get off the birth control. He told me it was only proper for us to start trying for children at that stage. I, on the other hand, was absolutely scared of getting pregnant. I just wasn't ready to have children yet. The reason is because I wasn't sure if Jonathan was up to the task when it came to providing for the family. At that time in our lives, he wasn't really earning substantial money yet. He was still struggling, and even though he earned enough to take care of both of us, I feared that a baby might just drag us down. I also didn't want to be the one to suffer financial problems while catering to a baby at the same time. I was constantly worrying about the future. I knew that in my head, there was a countdown where I had already given Jonathan a certain number of years to become financially stable, or else I would leave the marriage. I never told him I had such plans because, of course, I knew he would not take it the right way. I just had to think about my future at that point. I knew my graphic designing future was very blurry, and I knew I was too lazy to make it big while working and get rich. So I knew that my financial breakthrough just had to come through my husband. I knew he was a promising and hardworking man, and that is why I married him in the first place. He didn't have money then, but I knew he was hardworking enough to make it. So after about a year of marriage and not seeing any relevant change, I knew it would be a big mistake to get pregnant at that point. That's because I wanted it to be easy for me to leave the marriage when I noticed that there were no greener pastures in sight. I didn't want anything to tie me down, and I was 100% sure that having a baby would be the worst mistake I could make at that point. So I stayed on birth control without his knowledge. I gave him my word that I was off the birth control, and he believed me. I mean, I would believe me too, because there was no way he would imagine that his own wife was actually not interested in having his children. It just doesn't sound right, you know? After another 1 year of trying to have children, or rather after 1 year of trying to get me pregnant, Jonathan noticed that it just wasn't working. So he called me one day and we talked about it. I told him he just had to be patient, and that it was possible that I was not getting pregnant because of the birth control I had been on before. Jonathan was very understanding of my excuses, and he did not seem to suspect anything weird at all. I was also very convincing, and even the way I pretended to be worried deserved an Oscar award. Even though a part of me felt bad for what was going on, I just had to keep up with my act, because I was thinking about my life. I didn't want to suffer at all and just wanted a life that was very comfortable. It sounds very selfish now, but what was I expected to do? I feel like I tried my best at that point, and my reaction was valid to an extent. I believed in him enough to marry him. I was even by his side. So what if I thought about my own future separately? I just had to have my best interest in mind. It's not like I married him for money in the first place. If I married him for money, then I would have not married him at all, because he didn't have any money when we tied the knot. Just like all lies, the truth always tried to creep its way out, and the same thing happened between me and Jonathan. After another 1 year of trying, he called for another meeting. That day, he was very serious, and I could see that he had already been patient enough. He told me that he had made the decision for both of us to go get tested, and we could figure out exactly what was causing the problem. I tried to give excuses, but he refused and told me that he had been patient enough. He wanted to know if he was the problem or if we were doing something wrong. Even though I tried my best to get him to be patient, he was just bent on getting to the root of the problem. The moment I noticed that Jonathan was that serious about us going to get tested, I actually got very worried. I just didn't know what to do, and I was very scared. It was just so hard for me to imagine his reaction when he eventually discovered that I had been lying to him all those while. I knew he was definitely going to end the marriage immediately. I didn't want to be labeled a liar, so I decided to turn the situation around. I was so desperate to escape the rest that I made everything about him. I told him the only reason I didn't want to go for the test was because I was worried that he wasn't able to afford it. I made everything about his financial capabilities and told him that it was probably best if we laid low and stopped thinking about children for some time. It was at that moment in our marriage that I discovered that Jonathan was actually going to be rich. He told me there was no need to worry, and that he had started earning enough money for our future. That statement made me happy and angry at the same time. It didn't rub off well on me that he hid his financial capabilities away from me, and only felt it was okay to reveal it just because he learnt that I thought he was broke. I didn't like the fact that I wasn't the first person to know about his finances. For me, I deserved to be informed every step of the way, because I had been patient enough with him. He should have been thankful that I just didn't give up on him and leave the marriage during the times when I noticed that he might not have a bright future at all. Do you guys now understand why it vexed me any time, because it just made it seem like I was a gold digger? No one knew just how much patience I had in me to be able to stay with him when he was still struggling. I deserve to be praised too, and I deserve credit for every success he has right now. In case you are wondering how I was able to convince Jonathan to wait 2 more years, then I will tell you. I just explained to him that the thought of getting checked was giving me anxiety, and that I felt like it wasn't that late for us to try for children yet. I also made a promise to him that if we tried 2 more years and didn't get any results, we could get checked and I would have no problem. I went as far as making references to other couples or waited long periods for children, and I also told him we were still young and there was no rush. I said children would come in due time, and it was best for the both of us to focus on our career. What that really meant was for him to work harder, because I basically had no career at all. Jonathan hesitated, but after I pleaded with him for weeks, he finally gave in. 6 months after that, Jonathan basically had a financial glow-up. He was promoted at work and was earning almost 10 times what he earned before. We were able to purchase our own home, and everything seemed to be greater than it was before. The moment I noticed that things were better, I decided to get off my birth control. I just felt like there was no need for that anymore, since it was obvious that Jonathan was doing better than before. Subsequently, I also got really scared because it was evident that I had more to lose at that moment than I ever did before. I just knew how horrible it would sound if Jonathan found out that I had been messing with him all along. I was so scared of him suddenly leaving me that I knew I had to change my ways and act right. I didn't want him to leave me after making money and getting independent, so my number one priority at that point was to get pregnant as fast as possible, so he would never find out that I had lied to him for so long. Karma has other intentions though, and it suddenly felt like getting pregnant was the hardest thing in the world. Months after getting off my birth control, I was still seeing my monthly cycle, and nothing changed. I always cried in the bathroom when I saw it because I felt like I was losing my sanity. I didn't want my lie to be discovered, and that fear messed with me. What even made matters worse, and made me go to the extreme length that has finally ruined my marriage, was an advice I got from a friend. You know, like I said at the beginning, after Jonathan started flourishing, many people we met felt like he was the catch in the marriage. They thought I was some sort of lucky gold digger. Of course, none of them ever said such things literally, but I could tell that was what they were implying. My main problem was just that Jonathan never told anyone I was his support system. That bothered me a lot. I mean, don't I deserve some accolades for staying back? I didn't leave when he was almost broke, so that also counts as support. That just bothered me a lot, so I went to speak to a friend of mine. My friend obviously took my side, and then she asked a very important question. Are you pregnant? That question took me off really fast, and I told her immediately that I wasn't pregnant. She said to me, I am very worried about you then. Those words practically traumatized me because I was already worried about not getting pregnant yet, and for someone else to also see that as a problem really made me understand that I had a lot at stake. But her reasons were very different from mine. I had not thought as far as she did at that point, so when she gave her reasons, I got completely scared. She told me that without any children, I basically didn't have any real share in his money. According to her, Jonathan seemed to have made a lot of money already, and that the only way I would have a share in it is if I had children for him. I argued that Jonathan spent enough money on me and made it clear that he wasn't stingy with his money and always spoilt me whenever he could, but she explained that none of that was enough. According to her, if I had children, then one of them would be made his next of kin, and that would directly mean a share of his property would go to me. But without children, if he left me or if the marriage ended, I would have nothing at all. That statement really got me thinking, and I basically got worried and scared at the same time. I just couldn't bear the thought of being left with nothing all of a sudden. And then the fact that I had been trying for children and it wasn't working got me even more upset. The moment I got back home that day, I decided to ask Jonathan a very important question. I know I was wrong, and I should have thought about what I wanted to do first, but the desperation at that point was so real that I had no time to properly think of what I was about to do. I just met up with him and asked him who his current next of kin was. Just as expected, Jonathan didn't like that question at all, and he asked me if I had plans to bury him. I laughed it off and just told him to answer the question. He eventually told me that his sister was his next of kin, His sister is his only sibling and she is still in high school. I got really angered by that answer immediately. I couldn't believe that his sister was his next of kin and not me. I just hated the thought of that. When he noticed I was angry, he asked why, so I asked him if he had no plans for his own family. He told me he has plans to make his first child his next of kin after it was born. Even though that sounded better, I still hated the idea of having no share in his money. I tried to shake off my disgust, but nothing was working. I was just genuinely upset, and no matter how much I tried, I still couldn't shake off the feeling I had. I had no one to really explain my feelings to, so I decided to go to social media. Before getting married, I was already a big fan of social media, and I always tweeted, but it was never anything controversial or serious. Even Jonathan knew how obsessed I was with tweeting before we got married, but I never tweeted about my personal life. I had paused my social media presence after marriage because I had bigger issues to deal with then, plus the fact that some of my friends said it was immature to be tweeting every day as a married woman. I also made sense of their words because my tweets were barely getting any engagement either way. I wasn't popular and my tweets hardly got liked, so I stopped tweeting. But the issues in my life got so bad that I got back on social media as a form of escape. On one hand, I had no idea why I was having difficulty in getting pregnant, and on the other hand, I hated the fact that I wasn't my husband's next of kin. I had so many issues that were eating me up, and it seemed like if I tried solving the issues by myself, I would end up exposing my deepest secrets. I tried my link and decided to ask Jonathan to make me his next of kin. Jonathan basically fled up after I made the request. He told me he found it weird that I kept bringing up matters about his next of kin when he was very much alive. He said it made no sense and that our children would have that title. The fact that he was so stubborn made me so angry that I decided to vent on Twitter. Oh my God. You cannot imagine how much damage that post made. I was just angry and had no one to talk to because it would mean I would expose my secrets. So I decided to write about how I was a woman in distress who had an ungrateful husband that wasn't rewarding her for basically making him the successful man he is. I also called Jonathan a clueless man that had no clue I stayed on birth control even 2 years after he asked me to stay off it. I then concluded the post by saying Jonathan was trying to throw me under the bus by not making me his next of kin. I made the tone of the post playful and funny, but there were a lot of strong disrespectful words in there. It was just my coping mechanism. I was trying to make my situation look funny, even though it was eating me up. I made several posts and then I posted them. I didn't care about it because I barely got views or likes anyway, so I thought there was nothing to worry about. I went on with my life and forgot all about the post for weeks, until just 2 weeks ago after I woke up to Jonathan throwing water on me. Before then, Jonathan had not been in the house for almost 3 weeks, and when I called to ask, he said he was on a business trip, but after that he stopped picking my calls. So when he came back and bathed me in water, I was confused. He also threw some papers at me and said, "Sign the divorce papers now and get out of my house. I will see you in court." It felt like my biggest fears were coming to life, so I tried to punch myself to see if I was in a dream, but it was all real. I opened the file, and it was actually a divorce agreement. Before I could even process anything, Jonathan was throwing my things out of the room and throwing my boxes out. Apparently, guys, my post had gone viral, and his friends who came across the post and knew our dynamic called his attention to it. He saw the post weeks earlier, and that's why he left without telling me. He had filed for divorce without my knowledge and only came back when the papers were ready. I felt like a big fool and I was thrown out that same day. He refused to listen to me and even went as far as calling me his biggest mistake. He told me he was so disappointed and that he would rather die than stay married to me. I ran to my friend's place and guess what, guys? She had seen the post and knew it was going viral, but she never said anything to me. I honestly felt so betrayed. When I logged into my Twitter account, I saw that the post had already been viewed by 20,000 people. I just couldn't believe that the first time I went viral after being obsessed with Twitter for so long had led to my divorce. Update. This is an update to my last post. First of all, I didn't expect yet another post about my life to go viral. I can't believe the number of comments under this. I have fried my eyes out because I have lost everything I feared of losing. 2 years after the first update and I'm divorced, broke and possibly infertile. Yes, I got checked and found out I may not be able to have children. There is still hope, and I'm trying to get treatment, but let me put it out there that it was not as a result of the birth control. It's something I don't want to talk about, but I know why I wasn't able to get pregnant now. Jonathan has not reached out to me, and he has blocked me everywhere. He basically left me with peanuts and nothing substantial during the divorce. I cannot believe that a single post has ruined my life. I went viral at the cost of everything I cared for. Left with no rich husband and no next of kin, and now possibly barren. I suspect that my husband intentionally set me up with my AP and made me frequent the hotel. He has a loyalty reward so he could expose my infidelity. My name is Angelina, and I'm a part-time graphic designer. I'm a married woman, and I've been married for 3 years now. The name of my husband is Jerry, and he's 33 years old. Jerry and I have one of the most complex relationships ever. We knew each other for about 2 years before we got married. We weren't friends right away, nor did we date for a long time. Jerry isn't an overly emotional person, and that's the same thing with me. I won't come here to lie and claim that it was a love marriage or some sort of emotional love story. Jerry wanted stability and loyalty because he didn't want a cheating woman. His ex-girlfriend, whom he dated for over 4 years and got engaged to, ended up cheating on him. That really made him picky about dating in general, so it was hard for me to get through to him. When we first met, I knew he had a lot of money. He works as a developer at a company, and even though I do not know everything about his work, I know that he's loaded when it comes to the financial department. He's also good-looking to an extent, and is very disciplined and hardworking. I knew deep down that I just had to marry him, because to me he was the dream man. I fell for him instantly, but it wasn't like I was head over heels in love. Let's just say I had a crush on him, and his financial capabilities made matters better if I'm being honest. On the other hand, and unfortunately for me, Jerry wasn't really giving me the kind of energy I expected from him. It became obvious to me that he wasn't really interested in a relationship at that point in time. I knew it had to be because of his previous relationship and how things ended. So, after we met, I gave him up to a year to just get over it. If it wasn't like Jerry was holding on to him or anything like that, it was just that he wasn't interested in investing in another relationship. He had his guard up and felt like all women were the same. In proper situations, I would have left him to believe whatever he wanted to believe and just moved on with my life. But in that particular case, I just had to wait longer. I had to marry Jerry. That was the decision I had made. I felt like he would be the best choice of a husband, because for me, he ticked all the boxes. So I stayed, tried, and worked hard till he finally started noticing me. Jerry is very intentional and always has his guard up, so I just gave to note that it was difficult. It was the hardest relationship I'd ever been in because he barely gave me money or tried getting me expensive gifts. I knew that was because he felt like I was with him for his money and just wanted to be a gold digger. So I decided to pretend like I was an independent woman that was okay with not getting expensive gifts or being silent. I basically hid my real personality just so I could get in his hood books. I learned that he was looking for a woman who wasn't after money, had her own thing going on, and just wanted to be in a relationship for the right reasons. I had to make him feel like I was that person, so I had to pretend. To me, it was just the process of getting tested, and I had to pass all the tests, no matter what. Luckily for me, we eventually got to that point that I felt like he senses my genuine intentions. Months later, we got engaged. After our engagement, I literally had the biggest test of my life. I felt like everything I did had to be calculated at that moment, because the fact that I got the ring didn't mean that I could magically keep it. I was conscious of the fact that his last relationship ended just after his engagement, so I didn't want to change suddenly and get relaxed after getting engaged. I know it all sounds wild and unhinged, but I had to do what I had to do to secure the bag. Jerry wanted a woman that was genuine, so I had to be that person. I'm not trying to say I didn't really want to marry him. I 100% wanted to marry him. The thing is just that I wasn't really as independent as I was portraying myself to be. I liked to be sore-bedded, and I liked the feeling of having a man pay for almost everything I purchased. So that's the same thing I expected Jerry to do. But Jerry didn't want to be that kind of guy, so I wanted to pretend to be someone else, till we got married. I had the mentality that I could change his way of life after marriage. I also felt like marriage was the ultimate deal, and that when married, he'd have no choice than to spend on me and deal with whatever attitude or personality he didn't know I had before. It all seemed like the perfect plan until I realized that I'd been making a big fool out of myself. Yes, you heard me right. I had been the biggest fool in the world. Jerry wasn't the type of man I could change. He isn't the type of man that would dance to your tunes no matter what and put your priorities over his own. I feel like if I'd met him before his ex, it would have been a different case. Because Jerry took the lessons from his previous relationship and made sure never to make the same mistakes. After we got married, all hell literally broke loose, and I realized that I might have made the highest mistake of my entire life. Jerry is nowhere near the man I thought he was. He didn't try to charge at all or put an effort to make me happy. I wanted a marriage, not some sort of independence training. We had a lot of problems, but I'll break each one down. The biggest and most annoying problem for me was the financial aspect. I am even finding right now just thinking about the shades of hell Jerry put me through. I needed a man that could actually spend on me without thinking of his balance right after, but Jerry was not that man. Anytime we went out, he would pay the bills, even when we went shopping. But the problem is that he never paid for any extra stuff I wanted to buy. If we're getting matching outfits or shopping for an event, and I decide to buy an extra designer bag, diamond jewelry, or designer shoes, he would only pay for the things we had agreed on getting beforehand. He never cared to bear the financial losses from my spontaneous shopping, and that just got on my nerves all the time. I didn't get what the use of having a rich husband was if he couldn't just pay for expensive stuff. Yes, he bought things for me, took me shopping, and provided for the house, but he just never seemed to give me the huge checks I expected. I didn't get why buying me a designer bag was a problem. He would get me clothing and stuff, but never anything trendy or outrageous. But I wanted stuff like that. I wanted to wear the trendy things and expensive stuff I saw my peers wearing. But for him, that was a waste of resources. Sure, we lived in a luxurious house, never packed food, had stable water and electricity, and went on dates to expensive restaurants. Yes, all these things were available, but for me, it just wasn't enough. I expected him to put me on some sort of allowance. Yes, that's not asking for too much. For me, that's just the norm. I have friends whose husbands literally added them to their payroll. That's the same treatment I expected Jerry to give me. I didn't blame myself for giving him that idea that I'm independent, contented, and not after money. Yes, maybe I played a role in that, but I was not ready to give up. Even though I didn't lack in marriage, I wasn't exactly living the kind of luxurious lifestyle that I craved. So, I decided to take matters into my own hands and confront him. I just couldn't bear the thought of living like that forever. But Jerry didn't take it lightly at all. He wanted a fan of the way I came up to him and accused him of being an irresponsible husband. To be honest, I don't think I'd ever seen him so angry in my entire life. I had come up to him very angry, and the first thing I said was, "I feel like you are spending less on me than on your car, literally. I'm your wife, and I should get treated like one." That's what I said first. But with the reaction I got from him, you would think that I'd asked him to sell his kidney for me. "What is that supposed to mean? Do I not spend it on you?" Jerry had asked. My dear Reddit family, that question was a tricky one, and I knew it. I couldn't say no because he actually does spend on me, but I also couldn't say yes because I felt like he didn't spend enough on me, so I decided to go with the safest reply. "You don't just spend enough on me." That was it. That was literally the best statement I could come up with. But Jerry didn't receive that well at all. Before, I had the impression that Jerry could easily diffuse disputes between us. Even though he had always been strict and had his guard up, I'd always imagined that he would not like to argue with me and would be the way to calm the situation. But Jerry refused to be that person when we had our argument. He didn't try to calm me down. Instead, he called me out for being tone deaf and out of touch with reality. According to him, money wasn't easy to get, and that I should never feel entitled to whatever he earned. He also pointed out the fact that I had a habit of buying things I do not need, and that's why he never paid for them. He made the excuse of saving up for the future, and pointed out the fact that the economy isn't favorable, so he couldn't bear to spend extravagantly on clothing that we didn't need. He asked me if I'm hungry, and I said no. So he proceeded to ask what the problem was. I tried to point out the fact that for me, the problem was that I wasn't getting the kind of luxurious treatment I craved, and that was getting me angry. Can you believe that even after I gave him all of these reasons, he still believed that I was just being wasteful? He claimed that I didn't lack, but just wanted to spend, and for him, there was no way he was going to let his hard-earned money get wasted. I couldn't believe my ears, guys. Jerry literally told me to *CK off with that statement, and it embraced me. I started having a lot of unwanted thoughts, but it's not my fault. If he didn't react, I wouldn't have those thoughts. After our heated exchange that day, I began to consider a lot of things. It was hard for me to come to terms with the fact that after all my hard work and scheming, Jerry wasn't ready to do what I wanted. It made no sense to me, and I genuinely got heartbroken. I wanted the baby girl lifestyle where I could spend on everything I wanted without a care for the world. So, I decided to go for a plan B. Initially, I never thought there would be any need for a plan B. I honestly believed that I had hit the jackpot with my marriage, but it ended up being the exact opposite. So, I had to sit down and strategize all over again. It was just important to me to take matters into my own hands. So, the first thing I did was ask myself if I wanted to cheat on Jerry. If not for our financial differences, I know that I'm not a cheater and naturally have no desire to cheat. But it was difficult to use my head at that moment. One day while I went shopping alone, someone offered to pay for my things. It was really a thing of surprise for me because I didn't expect anyone to do that for me. It is mostly because I never went shopping by myself since Jerry and I got married. He always made time to accompany me, even though he made no move to pay for the extravagant items I decided to buy. The only reason I ended up going shopping alone was because of my argument with Jerry. He seemed to be upset about my words and the feeling was mutual, so I decided to go shopping alone. And that's how someone ended up being for what I bought. After paying, the man asked for my contact details and I gave it to him freely. I felt like it would be stupid to say no to the same person that had helped me without restraint. He kept in touch and chatted me up once in a while, but after some weeks I stopped speaking to him. He didn't really do anything to warrant such a reaction from me. The thing was just that I felt like speaking to him continuously would be a waste of time. He didn't have as much money as I wanted, and for me to risk my marriage, I wanted to make sure it was for someone worth it. That's how I got introduced to dating sites, guys. It was the most spontaneous decision of my life. I'd always heard of dating sites, and the fact that people usually found love on those apps, but I'd never paid attention to it, because I didn't imagine myself being on a dating site for any reason. But things took a turn when desperation hit, and I ended up subscribing to a dating site. I saw some reviews online, and then a friend of mine told me she met her rich boyfriend on one of those apps. I particularly took an interest in dating sites because I felt like it was easier to know the financial classes of men based on that. So, I needed a man that would be in the range of financial capable men I want. So, I was able to find about 5 and 4 out of them were all scammers. Finally, I got with a guy named Jaden. Jaden was the perfect definition of a man that was ready to spend. He literally started spending time with me from the first date. It would be an understatement to say I was impressed by Jaden and all he did. In fact, I practically feel for him right away. He took me out all the time and was never relentless to spend it on me. I started sleeping with him after only 1 week of going out with him. I knew I was being easy, and I was wrong for cheating on Jerry, but my desire to get the finer things in life the easy way left me with no choice. After almost 3 months of dating, Jaden and I had a particular hotel that we were regulars at. Jaden loved the hotel because he felt like it was the most secretive place we could meet up without worrying about getting caught. Yes, I'd told him that I was married, and he also told me that he had a girlfriend. So privacy was important for us, and it was necessary to find a place that didn't put us in danger of getting caught. While all this was going on, I had no idea that Kai Karma was on its way. I believed that I was a mastermind and played who had a rich guy wrapped under her finger. I loved the thought of being able to stay married to a rich man and also have a rich man as my AP. I was enjoying the extravagant lifestyle, and the thrill of outsmarting my husband was insane. Jerry, on the other hand, didn't seem to notice the shift in the air. Well, I believed for the longest time that it was because I was just too sleek with things. But it happened to be that wasn't the case. He just didn't notice anything because he was busy with work. Jerry and I lived under the same roof like all couples did, but there was no form of affection. I knew that he had picked up on my attitude, but not the fact that I was cheating. Even though I was cheating with Jaden, all I really wanted was to grab Jerry's attention. I knew Jaden was just a face, and that it would be impossible to keep dating him forever. So, I thought it would be nice if Jerry craved attention from me and finally decided to spend money on me. I planned on achieving this by giving him limited attention and trying to get him to miss me. It sounds stupid and naive, but that's just how desperate I was. While I was going on and out of the hotel with Jaden almost every day, I had no idea that I was being watched and that the truth was about to blow up in my face. It just didn't make sense to me at first. A huge part of me got angry gradually when I realized that none of my tactics was working on Jerry. Jerry didn't make an attempt to settle with me or even ask why I stopped spending so much time with him. Before I complained to him about his low spending on me, we did everything together. Everything was great in our marriage except his lack of financial trust in me. So I expected him to notice my withdrawal and try to get to the bottom of the issue, but the reverse was actually the case. He didn't care to do anything of the sort. He just went on with his life as if nothing was going on around him. This made me really angry, and it took restraint not to rattle myself out. But at the end of the day, I didn't even have to be the one to rattle myself out. The truth came out on its own in due time. So, it happened to be that all the time I was thinking I was smart, Jerry had discovered the truth, but was just observing to see how he would make me regret my decision for the rest of my life. Do you know the hotel I told you guys about? Yes, the same one I visited almost every day with Jaden. Well, I had absolutely no freaking idea that Jerry had received a loyalty reward at that hotel. I had absolutely no idea that Jerry frequented the hotel a lot of times and was basically a VIP member up to the extent that he got the loyalty reward. It had to be one of the most shocking revelations of my entire life because I most definitely didn't see any of it coming. So, one day, I was exiting the hotel like I usually did with Jaden and I holding hands. While we were on our way out, Jaden stopped and told me he needed to greet a friend. I decided to follow him only to get up in front of my husband. Yes, you read that right. I ended up in front of my husband. I don't think anyone will be able to imagine the level of shock I felt. I had absolutely no idea that Jerry and Jaden knew each other. Jaden knew I had a husband, but I never told him Jerry's name, and I also never showed him Jerry's picture. I discovered that day that Jaden worked under Jerry at work, like he was his junior at his work. I swear that I almost fainted right away. I couldn't figure out if that was just a perfect coincidence or if the two guys were playing me right in front of my eyes. Jerry actually pretended like he didn't see me and walked away. I refused to comment because I didn't want Jaden to get suspicious. I asked him how he knew of Jerry, and that's when he started telling me that Jerry was his boss at work and that Jerry also frequented the hotel a lot. I asked why, and he said Jerry held business meetings at the hotel, so much that he got a loyalty reward from the hotel, and that it was because of Jerry he decided to make that particular hotel our special spot. While he was speaking all the jargon, I wanted to practically strangle him. I discovered that all the time I came to the hotel, Jerry probably saw me or knew my whereabouts. The fact that I was unaware and stupidly thought I was being smart was crazy. I still suspect Jaden and I don't know what to make of everything that's going on. I need help because Jerry has told me to leave the house immediately, and he has also filed for divorce. G filed for divorce long before I got caught. My only hope now is Jaden, so I pray he isn't in on this. I cannot end up poor. Update. Hello Reddit, I am back again. I am sorry for waiting this long, it was never really my intention. So, let's get right into the update. I just discovered that Jerry set me up. He saw my profile on one of the dating sites, then set Jaden up with me. He actually asked Jaden to match with me and get with me. Jaden had no idea I was Jerry's wife, so Jerry tested me by trying to see if I would cheat on him for money. Apparently, he got suspicious of me and my intentions after the argument we had about money. He grew suspicious of me and decided to see if I would fall into his trap. He made Jaden promise not to tell him who made his match with me, and he actually funded everything Jaden spent on me. Yes, you read that right. I was long in his stupid game, and for Jaden, he was just following his boss's wish. That's why he didn't like me when we first met. They also explained why Jerry never cared to ask why I got detached. He planned it all and wanted to expose me. I honestly feel used and cannot believe I was used this way. Frequenting that particular hotel was never a coincidence. My own husband made me cheat so he could divorce me right away. After putting all my hope on Jaden and thinking he would help me get back on my feet after getting broke, I discovered he's just my husband's junior and wants nothing to do with me after finding out I'm his boss's wife. I'm extremely miserable and now I'm heading for divorce. Karma literally bit me hard.